So I wanted to talk about this, the Mac Mini M4 Pro. Let's get into it. Alright, so I've had this computer for about a month now, and I didn't initially cover my review the first or second day that I got it, like I noticed a few other people did. I didn't really want to get on the hype bandwagon, I guess you should say, and I wanted to give you guys an honest opinion of somebody who's used it for an extended period of time and gotten a chance to actually feel this computer and know what it's like and its capabilities. So first of all, let's cover off the basic specs that I purchased and went through. So the customization is as follows. You can customize the Mac Mini M4 Pro chip as two stages. So you can go with the M4 Pro 14 core or the 12 core. I went with the 12 core CPU, 16 core GPU, and 16 core neural engine. I decided to use this money on something else, and I'll explain that in a minute. But the 24 gigabit unified memory, I went with that, and I felt like it was ample because I had previously gone from a Intel MacBook Pro that had about 32 gigabits of memory, and that was usually pretty good. So I figured the unified memory would be more efficient and it would be enough for what I was using it for, but it seems to be adequate on what I've used it for so far. The SSD, which I'll talk about in just a second as well, I went with the basic on that. I didn't want to spend, $1,200 for 4 terabytes, which is what I needed, or 8 terabytes, which is 2,400. I could have bought the computer twice over almost with that price. I decided to use the standard gigabit Ethernet because I don't really need the 10-bit. It's only $100 though, but hey, that's that. So first of all, the storage, cover that. So I went with an external SSD because I wanted 4 terabytes, as I mentioned, and this one was the one that I decided to use. I don't have an affiliate link or anything like that, but I'll provide the links in the description. As you can see, that's when I purchased the actual SSD in preemptiveness to buying this computer. I had a feeling that Apple would release this computer not long after I got this, and I was kind of right. So anyway, that's when I purchased it there. And I went with an external enclosure for this that can run it at a reasonable speed, and I'll show you the speed, the read-write speeds right now. All right, so as you can see here, we get decent read and write speeds on this external enclosure, and it's got a write speed of 2400-ish and 2700 for read. So that seems to be adequate for what I'm using it for. As you can see there, it does quite well. So how I got this to run, I have it as a external enclosure running everything off of that. I'm using the startup system on that. I'm using all my plugins, all my VSTs, everything is connected to the external enclosure, and it goes off that SSD, and that has a heatsink on it, so it stays at a good temperature. As you can see here, it's around the same temperature as the internal one roughly. That's the internal one there, and this is the external enclosure. As you can see here, it's got 4 terabytes and it's staying at almost the same temperature there. So it's actually doing a really good job of doing that. I'm quite happy with it so far. I would admit probably the internal one, if you wanted to spend the extra money, it probably is a little bit faster as far as read and write speed and, recovering information and stuff like that, or samples. But for me, it seems to work adequate enough, and I didn't want to blast my account by spending 2 computer prices on the price of just one storage. So anyway, so that's that. So as far as logic, I wanted to show you what the logic system is capable of on this computer, and I'm running a buffer size of 128 on my Orion, and that's the playback device there, input and output. I'm using the buffer range as large and automatic processing. You've got up to 12 there. It doesn't utilize all of the efficiency core as far as I've read, but it's ample enough. It does the job. So as far as I know, there are other doors out there that may do that. I haven't tested a whole bunch of them yet. I have used Studio One to see how that works, and it seems to be about the same as Logic. A little bit better, a little bit worse. Doesn't really. It's almost the same. So anyway, let's have a look at this. I've got 147 tracks, and I'm going to hit play and see if we get an overload. This is using my screen capture as well, so bear in mind some of the CPU and GPU are being used by that. And as you can see here, I've got the CPU load at about 60%, and the memory is loaded at about 19 gigabits of usage, and I've got 24 there. So all these other programs are being used, but Logic is taking the most, and you can see that right there. And if we hit play, That's kind of wild. So that CPU is maxed out, you can see, but if you're looking at that buffer size, that's actually really crazy that they can run that much stuff. All of these tracks have 4 plugins each, and I could put one on the master as well if I wanted to put the mastering channel there. If you're looking at music creation, you've got all these tracks to play with. That's ridiculous. I don't think I would ever use that many tracks ever. But if you did, there you go. My opinion so far on this computer, it is very good. It's very capable. The only thing I could say is if you're moving from Intel, which I did, you're looking at the migration software which Mac have on it. It's not super difficult to use, but it is a bit of a mess around, if you've got lots of VST plugins like I do and you want to, move them from Intel, or even just in general, if you're moving from an older system to the Apple Silicon. Some of those plugins may or may not be compatible with Apple Silicon, which I've noticed some of my plugins aren't. A good majority of them are. Luckily enough, I have Isotope plugins and I use a lot of Isotope stuff. Most of the stuff I've got is the new stuff. So I've got their Ozone 11 and their Neutron 5. I use that a great deal. I found the same thing when loading those plugins on here. There's no issue at all. They can run ridiculous amounts of plugins there without it, ever having a problem. In a real life project, if I was to open this, this is I'll just close. Actually, I'll close this and I'll open a project here so you can kind of see of what it might look like. So the actual load times for this are actually quite fast as well. This project's not small. So generally, this is kind of what a project would look like for me. I'd have about that much going on. My tracks would be about that much count. And as you can see, some of my VSTs I don't have set up yet, but a good majority of them I do. That's kind of the general thing that I've got going on with my projects, and that would be a beat creation. So if you're looking at a CPU, that's doing nothing at all. Like that is quite literally not even touching the first point of the CPU usage. If I'm checking out quickly monitor it, yeah, you're getting 17 gigabits of memory usage, CPUs at 10% or 8%. So that's really, that's nothing. That's absolutely a great example of how this can work. So anyway, I want to hear what you guys think about it in the comments below. Have you upgraded to the Mac Mini M4? How's your experience been? Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully it taught you something. If it's beneficial, let me know in the comments. Otherwise, like the video, subscribe, and see you. It's a cold call. Whoa, what you slipping into? Got a thing, now you know I've been through these problems that I face.